My name is Nathan Hunter. I'm with the Bronx River Alliance. I'm really excited to be with you today. If you don't know the Bronx River Alliance, we are a nonprofit that works with the city very closely. We're a public-private partnership, and we act in a coordinated fashion with community members, other stakeholders, including local agencies, to be a coordinated voice for the river. So we do a lot of restoration efforts. We have an ecology program that focuses on the diversity of life along the river. We have an outreach aspect to our organization, so we're doing a lot of programming out in the community. Education department or division of the organization, doing lots of school programs, so if you have a school group that might want to come out to the river, let us know. We're pretty well known for our recreation program, a canoe program, takes people along the river. And we also have our Greenway program, and today we actually have Sid, who's with us, who's our Greenway coordinator, and has been helping lead the charge to complete the Greenway, which is a 23-mile stretch of bikeable paths connecting South Bronx with the Kensico Valhalla section of Westchester. So we're excited to have you here at Bronx River House, which is our new headquarters for Bronx River Alliance and also for District 14 of the Parks Department. It is a green building, so it's got some fun, cool aspects, including solar panels, geothermal energy. We collect our own rainwater, and we actually use this building as a living lab. So we're doing a lot of air quality monitoring. We're regulating and understanding our the dynamics of the flooding in the area. But just adjacent to here, I didn't even mention, my work is centered around the Bronx River Foodway, which is the first food forest inside of a city park, open to the community to access and forage safely. And so these mushroom moments are a part of the Foodway programming, an idea conceived by our Foodway team, which is a community-based advocacy arm of the Foodway project. So you can learn more about that by visiting our website, bronxriver.org, or by chatting with me, or chatting with any of us, and we can connect you. I'm really excited to be with you and to be introducing Marc Konkoly, and Corey Blant, both of which are fungi fanatics, as I like to call us, and they'll be leading a workshop today centered around how to make DIY mushroom bags. Thank you so much for joining us and for leading this workshop today.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I like to think of these workshops as opportunities to really create connections throughout the community, to not just do work in here today and to learn a little bit and take a mushroom bag home with you, but to try and create momentum for continuing efforts to build community projects and further citizen science, shall we say. So I'm here with Corey Blant from the New York Restoration Project. We both have experience doing DIY mushroom workshops.
Should we say a little bit about, I'll say New York Restoration very quickly. You should say a little more about BMI.
Sure.
Because BMI is the coolest. Restoration Project, fairly large organization, been around for a little while. We do all kind of things all over the city. My branch is like the urban ag, technical assistance, and educational sort of side of things. So I do programming mostly in community gardens, school gardens, all throughout the 5 boroughs. Workshops like this as well, really fun. I love it. Really, really excited to be here with you all today.
And my name is Marc Konkoly. I'm the farm director of Meal My Hydroponic Farms, which is a worker-owned cooperative based in the Bronx. There are about 10 folks that are active contributors to our organization. We have a microgreen and mushroom farm that's in Bronx Park East, indoors. And our mission is basically to address food insecurity, to create food resilience through urban farming, and to recruit and train folks from the Bronx community in how to do farming in our very own backyards right in our community. So there's some more information about us on the one-pager that's over there in the corner. And through the capacity that Mai has offered me, I've been working on a process to upcycle coffee grounds and sawdust, basically, which we have available throughout the city as components for mushroom cultivation. So that's what the focus will be on today, very specifically using upcycled materials that we have available around us in the city to grow mushrooms. I would love to hear from folks like what it is that brings you here, whether it's a connection to somebody or a passion for mushrooms or a curiosity getting into it if you're a beginner. Anybody who's willing to share.
Kind of like an evil scientist.
Wait, can you give us a name to I love to get to know people's names. I promise I'm gonna forget, I'm really sorry. But I'm gonna try my hardest.
My name is Julian.
Julian, nice to meet you.
Yeah, so I like doing like little projects like this, like doing a little evil scientist like that. I like growing things, seeing how things work, and just applying the lessons I learned to to get results. So I found this type of stuff to be. Well, me and my sister were actually talking about it the other day, way back in December, and it's just a coincidence that they started having these mushroom projects. So we had to go.
Awesome.
We manifested this whole class.
Yes.
Yeah.
Only because Julian brought it up, I want to hear more things, but I'm going to interject. I'm really curious. Can I just see a show of hands if you have done another part of the series? You've already been out here for some mushroom something. Okay, cool. Good to know.
So perhaps we can jump into an overview of the mushroom life cycle and talk about kind of specifically what parts of it we'll be looking at today. We are working with just a single mushroom species today, which are blue oyster, which actually seems to be what's depicted on this lovely chart that they had here for their house. This is a general outline of the mushroom's life cycle of all species. Today we're going to be kind of working, our journey will start about at this point because we're working with already developed spawn that we will then inoculate into a substrate which we have coffee and sawdust in that barrel for. But in general, in nature, mycelium, which is kind of invisible to us because it's under the ground, but by some estimates composes up to 35 or 40% of soil content. So a keystone organism within nature. It grows through its environment, trying to find food basically. And when it feels like it has limitations and has needs to grow into a new area, it will fruit mushrooms to sporulate. They fly on the wind and they go find a new place a new environment to grow into.
Can I, for folks who are visual, tactile learners like me, this is essentially a block of mycelium. We have 3. I'm going to encourage folks to pass them around. They just have to make it back to us because we're going to use them in a minute. Renee, you've seen these.
So these are blue oyster
You also does.
sawdust spawn blocks from a vendor called Mushroom Mountain based in South Carolina. And I think they're made of sawdust and maybe supplementary grain like millet. Those kind of materials are the stuff that mycelium loves to grow into. So this is basically what we'll use to inoculate our substrate with. I apologize for not having any actual mushrooms to show you today, but
We both tried. We both tried really hard, and it just didn't.
Yeah, the
timing didn't work.
I was willing this to fruit on time. I've inoculated it on a certain schedule. But feel free to, let's see how we can do this. I'll just bring it around, but
Mark, can I say one more thing about the life cycle?
Yeah, yeah.
Like grounding folks.
Yeah.
So part of why I was asking is sort of understanding. It seems like some people here have probably gotten a pretty in-depth already, like dive into what I'm gonna call mycology 101. I'm not gonna go all the way down the rabbit hole, but just point out, if we look at this diagram, maybe I'll grab it. Like Mark mentioned, we're sort of starting with already pretty developed mycelium, and that's because we want to set ourselves up for success. So starting with spores is going to be really hard. The spores need like the perfect conditions to then begin to grow all the way into mycelium, all the way eventually into mushrooms. If we start with spawn, we're just like kick-starting the process. And then what we're going for eventually, which we're going to talk about later, is the blocks that we create will look like that, fully colonized with mycelium, which Mark and I were talking about it just before we started. We're hoping, no promises, hoping 3 to 4 weeks from now, you might be getting to the sort of fully colonized state. And then what's going to happen is we're going to kind of slit the bag open. You'll see some pins form, and this pinning is actually, it's the beginning of the mushrooms trying to reproduce, the fungi trying to reproduce to make more spores that become new mycelium elsewhere.
at that point it's fully digested whatever you fed it, so now it's like, okay, time to find a new home.
Right.
So that's why it starts forming.
But, and there's tricks to it, and we may talk about it some, or it might come up again. We still...
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this information, you can actually visit our YouTube channel to recap our last workshop, which dives deeply into
Yes, there you
everything
go.
that is being described. But I will say more mushroom moments will occur this season, and we'll be continuing the conversation.
About, great.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I appreciate this diagram that actually Corey brought up.
A quick little, and then this is the part that we eat. So we'll get to eventually we'll get to this part. Mushrooms that we eat. I'm putting it away.
You know, we're talking about how we're just working within this phase of the life cycle today, but every step of the life cycle matters, and I guess a mushroom master will eventually have command over all the aspects of it. If you want to like start your own grow, what you'll want to do is take samples of the mushrooms that you have, samples of its tissue, and actually propagate that in order to get a strain that, if you're feeding it a particular diet, it will get more and more experience over time consuming that substrate, so that it can be, you know, suited to the cultivation that you have it attuned to. The cooperative I'm part of, if you don't mind, is trying to do commercial cultivation in New York City. So I hope that this is like a model that can continue to grow, because we have lots of materials available to us, you know, coffee grounds and other residual materials that would otherwise go to landfill. And we can grow a lot of healthy food with human beings here in the city. So that's the ambition with this. Talk about a little bit more about that at the end. The process of using the EM is more involved than doing pasteurization of straw, for example. Like if you want to try a different technique at home with less steps, just boiling straw and water and inoculating that also works too to grow mushrooms. But this is a process we can use really to harness materials we have readily available. So, folks ready to get hands a little dirty? Smell some exotic smells. So by the end of this process, everyone will have a bag that roughly looks like this. This is kind of our model to work off of. What we want to do first is mix a blend of fermented sawdust, which is in that barrel, and fermented coffee, which is buckets. Fermented with bokashi microbes, yeah. The same, roughly the same process as with this, although the coffee is already wet. So that's like a nice moist environment for the microbes to grow in. The sawdust, which we got from a wood shop in Brooklyn recently, we established that connection, Corey and I. It's quite dry, so you need to hydrate it a little bit more. And the coffee already comes kind of ready to be inoculated. This was a little bit of an experiment, but super excited for the potential of wood shavings because there are a fair number of wood shops. Does anybody know of one in the Bronx?
Across the street, Dykes.
Wow.
Dykes
there you go.
Lumber. They just moved from Harlem.
There you go. You do need a clean source of wood. Like you don't want to use treated wood. So if the wood shop specifically has like a planer that is cutting clean hardwood on, then there we go.
I will say, if you all are, go ahead.
Is there a preference of what type of wood to use?
We were talking about this the other day.
It's got to be hardwood. Start there. It should be hardwood. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be softwood, but in nature, mushrooms love to grow into hardwood, so that's their preferred type of sawdust.
What do you want to talk
No,
about?
I was just gonna say, like, just to illustrate how complex nature is, I'm sure that there are some types of hardwood which are more resistant to, mycelium growing through them just as a biological adaptation. Other types work symbiotically with mycelium, invite them in. So
We've specifically been having a conversation about walnut, which some folks who are more ecologically, botanically knowledgeable might know, like walnut, things don't grow around it because its roots produce like an allelopathic, like they put out a chemical substance that stops stuff from growing. And so we've been discussed, like it's something where nobody seems to have like a concrete, like don't do this, do this. We've just been having a conversation because wood shops work with walnut a lot, so there's lots of walnut available. But what would happen if we don't know? I was also just going to interject before, if folks are like interested in sawdust but don't necessarily have the like, I want to walk over to a wood shop and like ask them about their sawdust, you should find me afterwards because I'd be happy to talk more about that.
yeah, please let us serve as resources for you moving forward if you want to continue this. One way in which we can do that is allowing you to fruit your blocks in our equipment, because the fruiting stage, like you were referencing, you just left your block in a corner. You do ideally want to have it in a high humidity environment to maximize your mushroom yields. And it's fairly easy to put together a DIY setup, which will tell you how to do basically in your bathtub. But to really get the nicest results, feel free to use the facilities that we have.
You mean you'll house our blocks for us?
Yeah, if you want, we can talk about what our options are. But Nehemiah has a farm and fruiting chambers in that farm, so it's an option. All right, folks. We want this to be an interactive experience that anyone who wants to participate in can. We're going to mix the coffee and the sawdust at a ratio of pretty much 1:1. So we're gonna activate these scales over here, and whoever would like to come over and start filling these, just make sure you're tracking how much you're putting into the bin. I think what we want to do is, we have 2 scales, so we'll fill 1 bin with sawdust and 1 bin with coffee. I think our sweet spot is getting is having about to have about 75 to 80 pounds of substrate overall. So we use 40 pounds of sawdust, 40 pounds of coffee.
And just to foreshadow a little bit, we're gonna mix stuff in here and then bring it back to the table. So everybody, no matter what, whether you get to mix over here, will get to play at the table.
For sure.
Awesome.
Anybody wanna jump in? Grab some gloves.
You want to say a word about sterilization?
Yeah.
Because I think you said really good things about it.
Well, when we start to handle the spawn in particular, with our hands, we'll want to spray our gloves down with rubbing alcohol, because we do want to have clean hands when handling the spawn. With the coffee and sawdust, it doesn't matter. It's one of the real advantages of this fermenting these materials is it's a probiotic set of microbes that you're inoculating it with. Usually you have to be quite clean when you grow mushrooms. It's like folks are sterilizing, pasteurizing, disinfecting. With this way, it's I kind of like to call it like a guerrilla approach, where you don't have to worry about it being so cleanly, which is great. Yeah. When handling the sawdust, I recommend that you wear a mask. There is still a little bit of dry element in it. I'll kind of take it over so we can pluck it out in handfuls and put it into the bin, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Anybody want to step over to help? Multiple folks at the same time.
So we have two bins on 2 scales, right?
Yeah, 2 different skills.
So we'll put this one on the side.
Where?
I just had the math, I'm sorry.
So I think we should use the larger bin for the sawdust, and we can use the white bin for coffee.
I know.
Say again? No, if you want. Rubbing alcohol's right there too. It's like coffee sprays. This scale is pretty reliable in terms of staying on. I'll make sure I'm watching it, and we just kind of, it will stay on as long as there's kind of weight being put on it. This one I'm not so sure about, but we do know that we approximately have about 25 to 30 pounds per 5-gallon bucket. So we'll know approximately how much we have by emptying like 1.5 of these. That's about the mark we want to hit. Let me bring this over here. Yeah, we'll 1-to-1 ratio. We'll do. Let's just say we'll do 40 pounds. All right.
We don't need everybody.
No.
Oh, it's. Can I use this?
Yeah, sure.
There's multiple.
Go and yeah, put it. Let me turn on the scale for you. Okay, it's on. So go ahead, start trying to fill that black bin.
You have multiple.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it. You can do it one
So we're
after
gonna
the
do
other.
like 40-40?
Yeah, 40.
And then you have one more.
If folks want to, okay, start with the coffee. So I encourage you to, if you're brave, to smell this coffee. That you do see kind of some these kind of hairy elements here. That's the those are the hemp pads that we use as substrate for our microgreens, torn up and mixed into the coffee and upcycled as well. So try to do as much upcycling as possible.
40 pounds. Oh, there's a scale over here. We're only at 8 though, is that right?
Yeah,
If you want 40 pounds, there's only 8.
yeah, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna like, we can probably fill this with 10 or so, and then we'll start mixing, and we'll start mixing some coffee into here. You know what, why don't we just put it right into this bin?
I'm getting like butter. I'm getting like
Butter?
like movie theater butter. Movie theater butter popcorn.
I think that's probably from the start. All right, who wants to mix? Who wants to get their hands dirty? Hey, okay, let's move the barrel out of the way so that several folks at the same time. All right, so at this point we have 30 pounds of coffee and 10 pounds of sawdust in here, so we're keeping track. And we do want it to be mixed quite well. If you find lots of coffee, make it up with your hands.
It's a distinct smell for sure.
Making up for all the years.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of sauerkraut.
Yeah.
Like a sour smell. That's typically what the bokashi fermentation.
It's also smelling like compost.
How?
You made the bokashi. You made it yourself?
Yes.
It's giving
Yeah, so
compost.
we're passing these around. Yeah, so this is a liquid inoculant. There's also, you can also
It's
make
gone now.
bokashi brand, where you use like what do people use for it? Sometimes they use wood shavings or sawdust, like we have here. Sometimes they use wheat bran, and that's really useful for applying to food waste in particular, like a substance that's already really wet. And you're applying the bran, which is a little bit drier.
But you buy a powder and mix it with water? Or-
So it starts with this microbial inoculant, which is inactive in this form. That's why we mix it with the molasses to activate it. So I fill this up with water about to here. It's gonna be 90% of the solution, and I put it on a scale. I see how much water I have in there, and I add 10% of its weight, or sorry, 5% of its weight molasses. And I shake it up so it's all mixed in throughout this. And then the last thing I add is the microbes. Shig Matsukawa, who's a citizen scientist and community gardener throughout New York City. He's kind of the person who taught me about bokashi cultivation. He said you always set the table for the microbes. Everything that you want to put in there, because you can add other things like garlic or lemon or chili, which can have insecticidal or different qualities that you want. Put everything in there and then add the microbes. We'll have a formula that makes it easy for folks for how you construct your bag. So we'll do basically you put your bag on the scale and you fill it with a pound of the substrate mix, and then you add a 2-ounce layer of the spawn. So you'll kind of crumble the spawn up a little bit. It's probably already nice and broken up, and you'll put a layer of it on top of the layer of substrate you just put in. So why don't we do a demonstration? So
Everyone up front, let's do a demo.
So it's a 1-to-1 mix. We added about 40 pounds of sawdust, about 40 pounds of coffee, and this is what we have. So I'm gonna let me put some gloves on so I can handle spawn as well. So here's our scale. Gonna tear it, and I'm going to fill this up with like a pound of substrate. It's got 7 ounces, so I'm gonna do another handful. All right, so that's about a pound. Can somebody hand me some spawn? Thank you very much. Rubbing alcohol. So I'll spray my hand first. Then I'm gonna grab like a little handful of spawn and just monitor how much is being added. And I'm gonna kind of sprinkle it on it like this so that it can spread across it, across that layer. So that's about 2 ounces. What's best to do, I think, is kind of shake the bag so that you have a flat surface to apply the spawn to, because what we're gonna do is poke little air holes at every point where there's a layer of spawn. And we have some thumbtacks that we sterilized so that we can do that. We can do that after we fill our bags. So I'm gonna now fill it with another pound. So just keep track of like where you are on the scale, you know? So I want to get mine to. So the 2 pounds. Now I'm gonna shake it so that it's flat-ish surface, or I can kind of move it with my hands to facilitate, and add another 2 ounces. So do folks feel like?
How many layers total?
So we're gonna do 4 layers. So add a pound, layer of spawn. Add a pound, layer of spawn. So the top, the kind of icing on your cake is gonna be a layer of spawn.
Mark, can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
So I'm not a math person, but Nathan and I just did some really quick math over here. And I think we are like in
We're a
good
little bit.
shape with materials. We have less people and more materials,
Yeah.
which is to say, adding a little more, if you go a little over on the scale, don't feel like you gotta like take it back out. We'll be fine.
Yeah, we counted 22. We have 80 pounds of substrate. So maybe folks should do 3 pounds instead of 4 pounds. The bag is still gonna be plenty big. So
No, I think, yeah, not more, probably not more than 4, but up to 4 should work.
okay, let's go for it.
So
Should
is
be
that
okay.
four
So
layers of spawn?
we
Four
have
layers of-
spawn, everybody has access to spawn on their tables. What we're gonna, let's fill a bucket full of this so that folks can.
Well, there's tons of bowls on the table, so feel free to go back to your table, grab bowls.
One question.
Gonna be our spawn.
Yeah. Please, put 2.5 ounces. Yeah, shaking is good to level it, totally.
I'm watching.
I'm learning. Oh my gosh, you see, we're all just learning together.
Brilliance.
I will say the one thing I do encourage specifically with the mushroom bits is because you really want to good seals to add a second.
Good. The foldover.
Has anybody sealed their bag not hold?
I'm sorry for whoever didn't get the foldover.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that, yeah.
Yo, I need to pause this.
Yeah, you need to get that.
And get
you
a
need to get
photo.
that. Absolutely, you do.
For those still filling bags, one thing I would say not to do if you are is compressing it. Don't push it down, just fill and you can shake it a little bit, but don't compress. The mycelium needs to breathe, so if we compress it, then it restricts the oxygen.
I wasn't sure if you made one.
Meet the mushroom bags. We got Caesars.
Yeah, it's gonna form a solid layer. And she brought it up on her own the other day.
Really? To my grandmother.
If you don't mind.
Hey, I love it.